We're back. Hey, this weekend marks the season finale of a tremendously popular show, Yellowstone, starring Kevin Costner, at least through 5.5 seasons he starred. You could call it a Western soap opera, and you might be right, but there are larger themes in the show that make the case for it being an example of estate planning gone wrong. Brian, you've nicknamed this segment, Don't Be a Dutton.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of lessons to not do.
Let's set the stage and keep in mind this is a fictional story. So based on previous dialogue, the Dutton Ranch could be as large as 800,000 acres. That is mammoth. There is, Dave, a ranch in Texas called the King Ranch. This is real, 825,000 acres.
Crazy.
The Ford trucks that are named King Ranch, that's what they name them.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. So the origins of the Dutton Ranch, let's go back. James Dutton, if you watched 1883, he was played by Tim McGraw, was originally acquired by him, who received it through a government land grant for soldiers. The land is passed down through generations of Dutton. So James Dutton had Elsa, John, and Spencer. John had one child, John the Second. John Second had one child, John the Third, and that's played by Kevin Costner. All right. Current ownership, John Dutton was the current patriarch maintaining control. There are conflicts. There are challenges. External, most of them land developers, political pressures. Brian Jacobsen watches this not like the rest of us. He watches this with a different mindset and concludes it boils down to this being an example of poor estate planning, hence our title, Don't Be a Dutton.
That's right. Would that add some drama to it if it was all about, sitting down with the lawyers and drafting the documents and all that? Wouldn't that'd be good television?
It would be good television. I mean, it already is really good television, not only The View, but everything else with it. I mean, and you just got to laugh out loud when Jamie calls Beth on the phone. I mean, that's really, that's just outright hilarious. But, there's certainly estate planning, and this is one of the things that we do on a daily basis with our clients is to walk through it and to walk through what-if scenarios, and we put these graphs together. But if we put one together for the Duttons, it wasn't really great planning, was it?
Yeah, it really doesn't seem like it. Now, they could have some sort of surprise at the end where it was actually some brilliant estate planning that took place.
Or get gifted or...
Yeah, so maybe I'm kind of wrong. It's just based on everything that they've laid out so far.
And we don't know because it's on Sunday. Right?
That's right, exactly. So we're just kind of guessing because it is coming up as to what that final is going to look like. Maybe they're going to pull a rabbit out of their hat and it's like all magically, this was brilliant estate planning. There aren't these tax obligations. You raised an issue that I didn't even really think about is that, like, how did the Kevin Costner character...
How did he go through all those transitions?
Yeah, how did he get it? Because you'd have estate taxes perhaps at every step of the way. And those estate taxes in the past, they used to be a lot higher and also lower exemption amounts. So how did they keep it in the family?
Let's apply that to a small business owner or a farm today. These are the same issues that they have is how do you transition, and if you don't transition, do you have to have a fire sale to and get this capital to pay the estate taxes, which are 40% of the value over the threshold?
Sure.
And then, by the way, if you have to sell it, you have to pay capital gains tax. Assume long-term capital gains today at 23.8 federal, 7% state. That's 30. So just make it real easy. If it was $1 million and over the exemption, 30% sale of capital gains tax, that brings it down to $700. And that $700 then would be subject to estate taxes, which are 40%. So you're talking about, that's 70%. That is not taxation, that's confiscation.
That really is.
That's the reason why we really wanted to walk through this. And, we could spend the entire hour talking about this, but there's probably a legal structure they could have thought of.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. So in season 2, they were talking about, hey, let's put it in a trust. And I was thinking, well, isn't the ranch already in a trust or some sort of structure? Like a family limited partnership is a very common tool that's used. So you basically have the owner, right? Let's call it the senior generation. They're a general partner. So they're the ones who are operating it, but then they take the financial interests, the limited partnership stakes, and then they can start gifting that over time, either to the heirs or into another trust, or they can start donating it. So you kind of take the legal structure. The limited partnership can insulate them from certain liabilities, right? And I think that's a really important thing, especially if you're operating a ranch. That's one of the things about how dangerous it is, all the
Right.
lawsuits that could pop up.
And Cal said we can't get life insurance.
That's right, exactly.
Rip
Rip said that.
Rip
Yep.
said we can't get life insurance. But, it is funny because not only just that structure, but there's also generation skipping. And so Casey's son, I forget his name at the moment.
Tate. Yep.
Tate. Right. So he could have been part of that estate planning as well.
Yep.
And so all of this fire drill, selling the horses and everything, I hope I'm not having a...
No, that was on.
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Okay, is doing all of this to create the capital, right? To pay the taxes. That's what they're doing.
Sure, yeah, and that was just it as far as the amount of money that they raised from selling like cattle and horses. I think that the episode they said, we raised $30 million, but yet it was only enough to cover the interest expense
Right.
on the debt that they had taken on to keep the ranch operating. And if you think about, farming in general, very volatile as far as with the prices. People do it mainly because it's probably their lifestyle. It's not to get rich.
Well, how about Rip's description? There's 3 good years, there's 3 bad years, and there's 3 average years. We're working for the 1 year.
Yeah, which is kind of sad if you think about it. And really, even right now, beef prices are very high, but that's because
are egg prices.
Yeah, cattle herds are at like 1961 levels. They haven't been this low in a very long time because of all of the issues as far as with feed costs, and then also with the climate issues as far as droughts and all that. But that's a completely separate issue from an estate planning perspective. If you have these structures in place, you can also then control the legacy. It's not necessarily about making a ton of money and preserving the money. It's maintaining that legacy, which is clearly, that was front and center with the Duttons. He wanted to keep the land in place as far as keeping it whole, right? He gave
Since
his word.
1883, this family has been fighting, right, the entire time to try to keep this. So I'm going to try to put a bow around this if I can, Brian, is, there's really a couple of steps when you're talking about estate and tax planning, and we just want to fly through those. So asset protection being the first.
Yeah, I would say that asset protection is a huge one. Then what do you want to do in terms of succession planning, especially like who is going to inherit it? What do you want that to look like over time? Managing the debts as well of the estate. That was a very costly mistake, I think, as far as continuing into debt in order to, and then needing to raise the liquidity. So if you think about you need to pay the estate taxes, let's try to minimize that. But then for those that do need to be paid, how do you actually fund that? There can be different structures that you use, perhaps use of insurance policies in order to pay for the estate taxes when they come due, so you don't have to sell off parts of the land or parts of the business if you're owning a business, bringing on an outside partner in order to raise the liquidity just to keep that intact.
So, we talk a lot about, know the difference. We hired another team member this week, and they have been around in a lot of different firms throughout their career, and they said there's nobody who is doing the estate planning, the tax planning, the investment planning to the depth that we're doing. And that's when I talk about know the difference. It's good to get solace that there's other people who see that from inside of the business as well. Folks, you should know the difference between financial advisors. What is the depth of the team? Are they fee-only fiduciaries? Where are the assets custodied? This all goes into the process.